Being a mom means doing 100% of the emotional labor, even when the custody agreement says 50-50.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll take a look at several divorced women who now complain about having been married, even though they were the ones who destroyed their marriages. Responsibility is still kryptonite for women. And without further ado, let's get started.
Just attended the funeral of my marriage and 9 other women via divorce court, and I noticed some patterns I'd like to share with you. Number one, 100% of the petitioners, meaning the person initiated and asking for the divorce, were women. Number two, 90%, so all but one woman did not ask for spousal support. Same goes for child support. Not everyone had children involved, but for the ones who did have children involved, there was only one woman. It was the same woman who got the spousal support, also got child support. The rest of the women did not ask for child support. Property was wishy-washy, like not everyone owned property, but for the ones who did own property, aside from one like special circumstance, the men were keeping the homes and the women were not asking for any equity in the home. They were walking away from their husband. So let me just recap. Women are leaving men. They are not asking for any financial ties to these men, even if they have children to support. I am sorry, but I think that speaks fucking volumes. Because these are women who have decided, other than our children being the thing that ties us together, I want nothing else tying us together energetically, right?
Stop it. Get some help.
80% of divorces are filed by women. Nowadays, many continue this trend, but there's also a growing number of men choosing not to get married. While marriage is in free fall, divorce is booming. It's important to note that she doesn't mention the age of these women. If they're under 30, they usually fight less for the man's assets, but if they're over 40, they can be ruthless. At the end of the day, the reality in this country is that men rarely win in a divorce case. Don't be fooled.
I thought divorce was going to be the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I fear it might be the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, all the divorce girlies know. Like the first few months, let's say 3 to 6, are horrifying. Yes. And then like you get to that 6 month to a year mark and you're like, my hair's grown out, my skin is cleared up, my aura is bright. I have new friends. I'm making more money than I ever made. I'm thriving. I'm happy. My kids are happy if you have kids. You know what it's like to feel joy again? Yeah, I don't know. I really thought my life was over, but it turns out that the over part was temporary, and life gets really good after divorce if you let it. Trust me.
When a woman shows that much resentment and comes undone after a divorce, all it really does is make it clear why the man left. Misery isn't something that's done to you. It's something you carry inside, and whoever carries it radiates it. No man thrives next to someone who lives in a constant state of complaint. That's why, when divorce comes, many men don't fight to stay. They leave. They know the hit will be hard at first. The first few years are tough. You lose money, stability, and routine. But a man regroups, gets organized, and starts rebuilding. On the other hand, many women realize too late that divorce wasn't liberation. It was a slow slide into poverty.
Women get rich in divorce. That's the favorite bedtime story a lot of men like to tell each other. And as a divorce lawyer, let me be real with you. Most women aren't walking away with mansions and yachts. They're walking away with their peace and maybe a 2006 Honda Civic. The truth is, a lot of women leave with less than what they came in with. They gave up their careers to raise children. They paused their dreams so he could chase his. And now they're starting over, emotionally drained and financially behind. He got promotions while she got postpartum. He built credit and she built a family. He got to focus and she got to multitask until burnout became her baseline. Divorce doesn't make women rich. It just shows how broke the system is. By the time she files, she's already done the math, emotionally, mentally, and financially. She's not chasing a bag. She's trying to build a life again from scratch. So the next time someone says she took him for everything, ask them to show you the receipts. Instead, I see women piecing themselves back together with grace, grit, and just enough in the tank to keep them going. And that's the real wealth.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Here comes the speech about how a woman could have been a millionaire if she hadn't gotten married. I've seen plenty of women who've never been involved with a man and still get nowhere in their careers. On the contrary, many get laid off out of the blue and end up below the poverty line, far from living better than when they were with a man. Besides, the data shows that among the top reasons men file for bankruptcy, divorce ranks in the top 3. What happens is that statistics show many women walk away with little because most men are middle class and don't own property, which limits what a woman can take in a divorce. But there's that top 10%, mostly upper middle class or wealthy men, and those are the ones divorce truly wrecks. It all comes down to net worth. But let's hear what another attorney has to say in the next video.
A wife getting divorced in Texas is entitled to a just and right division of the community assets. Now that means everything that was acquired during the marriage, even if their husband was the breadwinner and earned all of the income, every bit of retirement that that husband earned while he was working. And if he purchased a house during the marriage, that house is divisible. Everything that was bought during the marriage, even if the wife didn't work or earn any income, it's all divisible. And the wife is entitled to a fair division of those assets. A wife in Texas may be entitled to spousal maintenance after the marriage is ended. That means that they would get paid a certain amount of money per month to help support themselves. You have to have been married at least 10 years or been the victim of domestic violence, or if you were disabled, you could be eligible to request spousal maintenance to be paid after your divorce is finished.
And of course, they say they walk away from divorce with nothing. Give me a break. Many of them, after 10 years of marriage, have access to practically all the income you'll make in your lifetime, even money you earned before the marriage, the house, the 401k, the savings. And since psychological disabilities are all the rage now and everyone suffers from something, they claim to be unfit to work and go after spousal support. That other lawyer says women leave with nothing, but the woman who doesn't get money in a divorce is the one who was with a man she couldn't get anything out of. That's why a lot of men have learned. They quit their jobs or get themselves fired just to avoid paying alimony or to keep the judge from tearing them apart.
I am so grateful for my divorce for so many reasons. One big reason I'm grateful for my divorce is that my kids get the best version of me. I was in the marriage. I was depressed. I was miserable. I was confused. I was lost. I was walking on eggshells, trying to hold it together. I was trying to hide their dad's addiction from them. I was, just in so many enabling patterns, and I was really struggling. And they were watching their mom not setting boundaries, not being powerful or independent. And now after divorce, they get the best version of me. I hear all the time, my kids are so proud of me, watching me on my growth journey and stepping into my power, creating a career, being financially independent. Like, they're so proud of me. And they also thank me for getting a divorce. They thank me for making the hard decision for them to get them out of the toxic situations. So it's shown me how capable I am. It pushed me. It pushed me hard out of my comfort zones of feeling like I needed a man to provide for me or abdicating my financial power to him. Like, it pushed me to really rely on myself, be creative, be resilient, figure things out on my own, and prove to myself what I'm really, truly capable of. I learned what I am worth. I learned my worth and what I deserve. Out of the divorce gave me the opportunity to really dig deep into my own personal growth and understand and realize what I'm worthy of and what I deserve, which is healthy, safe relationships. One other thing I'm really grateful for about my divorce is I got to take all of that energy I was pouring into trying to save a relationship that was unsavable and give it back to me. And for the first time in my life, I got to put all of that energy into me, cultivating my career, developing myself as a person, healing myself, learning how to be a better person and a better partner. There are so many gifts I got out of divorce that I am so grateful for.
Remember, brothers, that women are the only ones who will sacrifice their families for their own happiness. Then she'll hit you with lines like, "The kids deserve a happy mother," or "They can be raised by another man who's not their dad." Because deep down, she doesn't really care about the kids. She cares about her own benefit, even if it doesn't sound nice to say it. What's really concerning is the number of married men who end up turning to alcohol or drugs. A lot of men are miserable in their marriages. Imagine working all the time and then coming home to a woman who constantly complains about you, just because she's unhappy with herself, because she wants to go party with her friends, because she doesn't even want to make you a sandwich. That's why when they get left, a lot of men end up thriving. So much so that when you look at their ex-wives, most of them end up worse off. Coincidence? I don't think so.
Women.
I've been a forensic accountant for 25 years, and angry men always ask me, why should she get half of the money? Because once they get married, it's not his money, it's their money. The money earned during a marriage is marital money, and they are both entitled to it, no matter whose name is on the paycheck. And most of the time, it's the wife who stays home to raise the children. So even though it's her husband's name on the paycheck, she has made valuable contributions to that household. So yes, your wife is entitled to half of the money, even though her name was not on that paycheck.
Modern marriage is a deal with the devil. No matter what you do or what you build, in the end, half of it isn't yours. And now take a look at the next video, because here comes the perfect justification for why you always lose.
Did you know that couples aged 50 and older are getting divorced at higher rates than we've previously seen? And even higher in couples aged 65 and older. The 50 and older crowd makes up a quarter of all divorces in the US right now. This has been and continues to be a growing phenomenon, and I want to discuss why that might be. Because if we look at this information and pair it with the fact that women file for 70% of all divorces, how men who are married live longer than men who aren't, and how all of that might be leading us to where we are right now. I saw this story on CNN and they're interviewing a divorce attorney, and here is what one of her clients specifically said and quoted. I had one client tell me, "I do not want to die next to that man. I'm out." First, let's talk about why the 50 and older crowd might be deciding to divorce later in life. In this excerpt from the American Bar Association, it talks about some reasons as to why. And most often, it happens when couples become empty nesters and realize that raising children was what was keeping them together. The second is that due to a longer life expectancy, couples are finding themselves in their 50s and 60s unhappy with 20 to 40 more years left to live, and they don't want to do it their way. They don't want to be complacent. They've got a short window of time left and they are no longer going to waste it. So what does this information and the information that women initiate 70% of divorces have to do with each other? In this piece from the BBC, they say that how partners do or don't meet their emotional needs in marriage. Yet it might be a little bit more complicated. There might be a little bit more nuance. So what might that be? I talked to Heidi Carr, a psychologist and expert on domestic violence at the U.S. Education Development Center, and she explains that there's no coincidence that the rise of divorce has coincided with women's liberation. Economic independence is an imperative before a woman can attempt to leave a marriage. Either alone or with children to support, it's extremely difficult for women to leave a marriage unless they have some way to make money on their own. Did you know that 75% of women between the ages of 25 and 54 were working? So more women are independent when it comes to making their own money. Whereas 40, 50 years ago, that was not the case. Not only that, but no-fault divorce wasn't even legal. Not to mention that women couldn't even have their own checking accounts. So in other words, women's entry into the workforce enabled them to leave unhappy marriages for the first time. They were no longer financially bound to remain in abusive partnerships or relationships where their needs were not being met, and women thus began to initiate divorces at a greater scale. What was that piece about women's emotional needs not being met? A lot of the times for divorce, the expectation is that they have when they enter marriage may fail to match reality. Women have a higher expectation of how a partner will meet their emotional needs than men, which can lead to disappointment post-wedding. This license-based therapist who specializes in conflict resolution says men are usually socialized to have lower emotional intelligence than women, and it can lead to female partners feeling unsupported and doing much of the emotional labor in their relationships. Let's see what else she had to say.
Oh, hell no!
Notice two things. The entire interview was with female attorneys, who always list emotions as the #1 reason and repeat that men lack emotional intelligence. But they never talk about the financial side. Most men who lose their marriage at 50 are just 10 years away from retirement. Many women start asking for divorce at 60 simply because they don't want to take care of the man. That's why you see so many men in nursing homes, men who spent their entire lives providing for a woman. And when the time comes for that man to finally be home more, she chooses to leave. That's why divorce is one of the top 3 causes of male bankruptcy. At that age, the woman gets a highly favorable divorce, with alimony and half the retirement. But let's continue.
This also means that women are more finely attuned to problems in relationship red flags, and their tendency to be the primary communicators and empathizers means that they may also be the first to raise issues. Women also tend to gain fewer emotional benefits from marriage, which we've already known for a very long time that men benefit from marriage way more than women do. We know that women who have previously been married have more leisure time and more downtime to fulfill their hobbies. Married men experience multiple perks, including living longer and earning more money. Women don't usually benefit from their relationships in the same way. Instead, they bear the brunt of household and child-rearing labor, which can leave working women overwhelmed and stressed and depressed and anxious. Now, why do single women live longer, happier lives than single men? Because we also tend to have more close friends than men, meaning we have better support systems both to discuss any marital issues as well as to ease the transition back into single life. In this piece from Harvard Health, we learned that studies over the past 150 years say just how much healthier men and marriages are. Married men enjoy better health than their single, divorced, or widowed peers. Mental health is most prominent. Married men have a lower risk of depression and a higher likelihood of satisfaction with life in retirement than their unmarried peers. A Harvard study reported that socially isolated men have an 82% higher risk of dying from heart disease compared with men who have strong interpersonal relationships. The New England Research Institute reported that 66% of men rely on their wives for their primary social supports. Men don't have the types of relationships that women have. When they get divorced, they're lonely. They're isolated. It's harder for them to transition back into the world of singlehood than it is for women. I think we're going to continue to see older women and women of all ages forego marriage and continue to initiate divorce at an older age because of financial independence. This piece from the BBC also says the strife men face initially after divorce is short-lived, whereas women continue to suffer from more chronic long-term effects, including the loss of home ownership, reduced financial means, and increased stress from life as a single parent. But even in spite of those, only 27% of women said they regret getting a divorce. Women are willing to forgo these hardships, forgo not having a stable place to live, to forgo possibly having to raise their children on their own with little financial support, and yet they're still initiating these divorces because getting a divorce outweighs having to stay in a marriage with a person who does not meet their emotional needs. They still continue to carry the emotional, domestic labor and childcare burden, and they're tired of it. I think we're continuing to see these strides from women's liberation, women's independence, financial freedom, women getting higher education, women's less dependence on men, or less support that they need from men, and that they are no longer willing to sacrifice that happiness simply for stability's sake, or simply for the children, or even after the children have gone and they're empty nesters. They realize they have no connection other than the kids that bound them together.
Nothing less was expected from a woman wearing a pig earring. Now, out of all this, what's really concerning is that men tend to lose their friends over time, something I don't recommend. A friendship can be maintained with just a simple phone call, but women benefit more from divorce. They're the #1 destroyers of family wealth. That's why you see many young people starting life off worse than men from previous generations. Hardly anyone inherits anything or gets support from their parents, because divorce wipes out the family's wealth. There's a reason why children of divorced parents tend to do much worse. Here's another fact. Women may pursue higher education more than men, but most of them choose degrees with little added value. They don't study accounting, engineering, science, or data science. They avoid anything that involves math, which means their contribution to the country remains low. Another fact, even after divorce, men generally have a better chance of getting back on their feet. With their money, they can afford better lawyers, postpone retirement if needed, and on top of that, it's easier for them to take their pension or retirement abroad, to the Pacific or Latin America, to enjoy life, often with a younger woman. We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. If divorce wipes out inheritance and worsens the future of the kids, is it really a liberating decision or just a selfish one? Is it just a coincidence that so many divorces happen once the man has built his wealth and is just a few years away from retirement? If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Your support means a lot to us and motivates us to keep creating more content. Stay tuned for the next video from The Wall.